The courtyard of Thorn Hall stretched wide beneath a sky painted in twilight purple. Blue flame lanterns swayed on iron posts, casting shadows that danced across ancient stone. Wolfsbane garlands draped the walls, their poisonous beauty a reminder that this was no ordinary gathering. This was the Luna Trials, and every Omega in the Varen territories knew what it meant. A chance, a sentence, a destiny written in the stars. Hundreds of people crowded the courtyard. Nobles in silk robes whispered behind jeweled fans. Pack betas stood with arms crossed, their expressions hard and judging. Court ladies leaned close to share gossip, their voices sharp with cruelty disguised as concern. And at the center of it all, a line of young women stood trembling. Each girl had been chosen from her village, her family, her pack. Each one carried hope or terror or some mixture of both. They wore their finest gowns, colors bright as spring flowers. Their hair had been braided with silver threads and adorned with moonstone pins. Their skin glowed with scented oils that made the air thick with competing fragrances. All except one. At the very end of the line stood Tamara Gray, and she looked nothing like the others. Her dress was the color of old mud, patched at the elbows and hem. The fabric hung loose on her frame, hiding every curve, every line of her body. A headscarf covered most of her hair, tied so tightly that only a few dark strands escaped. Her face was smeared with ash, gray powder dulling her skin and settling into the hollows beneath her eyes. She kept her head bowed, shoulders hunched forward as if trying to fold into herself and disappear. The crowd noticed her immediately. A woman in emerald silk leaned toward her companion. Who allowed someone like that into the trials? Poor thing looks unfortunate. Does she truly believe the Alpha King would choose her? She must be desperate, or foolish. The whispers grew louder, spreading through the crowd like wildfire. Laughter followed. Not the kind sound of shared joy, but the cutting mockery reserved for those who dare to reach above their station. Tamara heard every word. Her hands trembled at her sides, but she did not lift her head. This was exactly what she wanted. Let them laugh, let them mock, let them dismiss her as unworthy, unremarkable, invisible, because invisible was safe. Beside her in line stood Elara Voss, a beauty with golden hair that cascaded down her back like liquid sunshine. Her gown sparkled with crystals that caught the lantern light. She glanced at Tamara with barely concealed disgust. "You should not be here," Elara whispered, her voice sweet as honey laced with venom. "The trials are for Omegas of quality, not peasants who smell of burnt herbs." Tamara said nothing. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but she kept her expression blank, her body still. Further down the line stood Saren Vale, tall and elegant with raven black hair and skin like polished mahogany. Her eyes were sharp, calculating. She studied each girl as if measuring their worth in gold. Kaya Rowan stood near the front, her copper curls bouncing as she adjusted her sky-blue gown. She radiated confidence, her smile bright and practiced. These were the favorites, the ones the court expected to be chosen, the ones who had prepared their entire lives for this moment. And then there was Tamara, the girl who had prepared her entire life to avoid it. A horn sounded, deep and resonant, silencing the crowd instantly. The great doors of Thorn Hall opened. Alpha King Lucian Thorn stepped into the courtyard, and the very air seemed to shift. He moved like a storm given human form. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell just past his collar. His eyes were gray as winter steel, cold and unreadable. A scar traced down the left side of his neck, disappearing beneath his black collar. No one spoke of where that scar came from. No one dared. He wore simple clothing compared to the nobles around him. Black shirt, black trousers, boots made for walking rather than show. But there was no mistaking his authority. Power rolled off him in waves, an invisible force that made every wolf in the courtyard want to bow their heads. The Luna Trials were not about romance or courtship. They were about destiny, about the ancient magic that bound Alpha to Omega, mate to mate, the bond that could not be forced or faked. Lucian had waited years for this. The prophecy carved into his bloodline demanded it. The next Luna must come from grey blood lineage, it said. She would carry the scent of moonlight and silver, and she would be his fated mate. The crowd parted as Lucian walked forward. His boots struck the stone with measured steps. His expression revealed nothing, but his eyes moved over each girl with careful attention. He stopped before Elara Voss first. She straightened immediately, tilting her chin up to display the graceful line of her neck. Her smile was confident, practiced. She had been coached by her family on exactly how to stand, how to breathe, how to make herself appealing to an Alpha King. Lucian's gaze moved over her face, then drifted away without interest. He moved to the next girl, then the next. Saren Vale bowed deeply, her movements fluid and elegant. Lucian paused for a moment, studying her with those cold gray eyes. Then he continued walking. Kaya Rowan practically glowed when his attention fell on her. She had prepared her whole life for this moment, rehearsed every gesture, but Lucien's expression did not change. He looked at her the way one might look at a painting in a gallery, with appreciation but no connection. He walked past girl after girl. The crowd began to murmur with confusion, and then Lucien reached the end of the line. He stopped before Tamara Gray. The courtyard fell into absolute silence. Not a whisper, not a breath. Even the wind seemed to hold still. Tamara's entire body went rigid. She could feel his presence like heat from a fire, overwhelming and inescapable. Her instinct screamed at her to run, to flee, to do anything but stand here beneath his gaze. But she could not move. Lucien stood perfectly still, studying the girl before him. The girl in the ash-stained dress, the girl with her head bowed and shoulders hunched, the girl everyone had dismissed as unfortunate. Then he did something no one expected. He stepped closer. Close enough that Tamara could see the dust on his boots. Close enough that she could hear his breathing, slow and controlled. Lucien lowered his head slightly. His eyes closed. And he inhaled. The scent hit him like lightning splitting a tree. Even masked by bitter herbs, even dulled by whatever concoction she had used, her scent was unmistakable. It cut through every barrier she had erected. Moonlight and silver, ancient and rare, the scent of the one-woman destiny had crafted for him. His eyes opened, and they were no longer gray. They glowed amber gold, the wolf rising to the surface. The crowd gasped. Several people stepped back instinctively. Tamara's heart stopped. She knew that look. She had seen it in stories, in warnings whispered by her father. It was the look of an alpha who had found his mate. No, 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 no. Lucien's voice was low, rough, carrying across the silent courtyard with absolute authority. Her. The single word fell like a hammer. This one. Gasps rippled outward like shockwaves through water. Nobles clutched their fans. Pac Betas exchanged confused glances. The other Omega candidates stared in open disbelief. Elara Voss's perfect composure shattered. What? But she is the one I choose, Lucien finished, his eyes never leaving Tamara. Tamara tried to step back. Her foot moved, but Lucien's hand caught her wrist. Not roughly. His grip was gentle, almost tender, but it was unbreakable. Do not run from me, he said softly, for her ears alone. Her voice came out as barely a whisper. Please. I cannot. You can. His thumb brushed against the inside of her wrist, finding her racing pulse. And you will. The world tilted around Tamara. This was not supposed to happen. She had planned everything so carefully. The ash, the herbs, the ugly clothes. She had made herself invisible, unappealing, forgettable. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Lucien turned to face the crowd, his hand still holding Tamara's wrist. His voice carried across the courtyard with the weight of absolute command. Tamara Gray is my chosen Luna. The trials are complete. The crowd erupted into chaos. Voices rose in protest, in shock, in confusion. But Lucien did not seem to hear them. His attention remained fixed on the trembling girl beside him. Come, he said quietly. We have much to discuss. And as he led her away from the courtyard, Tamara felt the eyes of hundreds burning into her back. Jealousy, anger, disbelief. Her disguise had worked on everyone. Everyone except the one person who mattered. Hey, quick question, how are you feeling right now? Thank you so much for being here. It really means the world to me. If Tamara's story is already pulling at your heart, please hit that subscribe button for Ariel Romance Library, smash the like, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. It helps more than you know. Alright, thank you. Now let's get back to what happens when the girl who pretended to be ugly becomes the Alpha King's chosen Luna. 20 years earlier, a baby girl was born in the Grey family cottage on the edge of Varen territories. The midwife who delivered her gasped when she saw the child's face. She immediately covered the windows, locked the doors, and swore a blood oath never to speak of what she had witnessed, because Tamara Gray was born with a face that could destroy kingdoms. Her father, Eldon Gray, understood this immediately. He was a quiet man, a healer who lived far from the courts of power. He had chosen that distance deliberately, because he knew what happened to Omegas who were too beautiful, too rare, too valuable. They became prizes, weapons, tools for binding broken alliances and securing power. Eldon wrapped his newborn daughter in soft cloth and whispered a promise. I will keep you safe, whatever it takes. As Tamara grew, her beauty became impossible to ignore. Her skin was smooth as cream, unblemished and glowing with health. Her eyes were the color of spring leaves, bright and alive with intelligence. Her hair grew in thick waves, mostly dark but threaded through with silver streaks that caught the light like moonbeams. Those silver streaks marked her as Greyblood. The Grey bloodline was ancient, nearly extinct. Legends said that Grey blood Omegas carried magic in their very bones. Their scent could drive Alphas to madness. Their presence could shift the balance of power between packs. Prophecies surrounded them like smoke. Eldon taught his daughter to hide, to cover her hair with scarves, to walk with her shoulders hunched, to avoid looking anyone directly in the eye. "Your face is dangerous, Tamara," he told her when she was old enough to understand. "Not because it is plain, but because it is too beautiful. An Alpha who sees you will want to claim you, to mark you, to bind you to him forever." Young Tamara did not understand at first, but as she grew older, she began to notice the way traveling Alphas would pause when they passed near her cottage, the way their heads would turn, noses lifting as if catching a scent on the wind, the way their eyes would glow for just a moment before Eldon quickly ushered Tamara inside. One Alpha even came to their door. He was from a northern pack, tall and scarred and radiating authority. He demanded to see the girl whose scent had reached him from half a mile away. Eldon refused. The Alpha threatened. Eldon stood firm. That night, Eldon moved them to a new cottage deeper in the forest. "Do you see now?" he asked his daughter. "Your beauty is not a gift. It is a target on your back." So Tamara learned to hide. She mixed ash with water and rubbed it into her skin. She crushed bitter herbs and wore them in pouches around her neck, dulling her natural scent. She dressed in her oldest, plainest clothes. She practiced walking differently, moving differently, being different. She buried her beauty beneath layers of disguise until even she sometimes forgot what lay underneath. The years passed quietly. Tamara became skilled in her father's healing arts. She learned which plants could cure fever and which could mask an Omega's scent. She lived a simple life, far from the courts and their dangerous games. Until the announcement came. Alpha King Lucien Thorn was seeking his Luna. The Varen Council had declared Luna trials, and every unmated Omega of age was summoned to attend. Refusal meant exile. Defiance meant death. Eldon's hands shook when he read the proclamation. "We can run," Tamara suggested desperately. "We can go to the borderlands, beyond the territories. They will find us." Eldon's voice was hollow with fear. "The King's reach extends everywhere. If you do not appear at the trials, they will hunt you down." Tamara felt her carefully constructed world crumbling. All her life, she had avoided this exact situation. All her life, she had hidden from the Alphas who might claim her, and now she was being summoned directly into their midst. That night, she stood before her small mirror and removed her headscarf. Silver-streaked hair tumbled down her back. She wiped the ash from her face, revealing skin that glowed like pearl in the candlelight. She looked at the girl in the mirror and barely recognized herself. This was the face her father had warned her about. The face that could draw an Alpha's attention like flame draws moths. The face that made her a target. Tears slid down her cheeks. "I will not let them have you," she whispered to her reflection. "I will not let any Alpha claim me." She spent the next week preparing her disguise with meticulous care. She mixed stronger herbs, ones that would completely suppress her scent. She gathered ash and mud, and learned to apply them so thoroughly that no hint of her real skin showed through. She found her ugliest dress and made it uglier, adding patches and tears. She practiced in front of the mirror for hours, hunching her shoulders, keeping her head down, making her movements awkward and graceless, transforming herself from the beautiful Omega she was into someone unremarkable, forgettable, undesirable. "If they cannot see me," she told herself, "they cannot own me." On the day of the trials, Eldon hugged his daughter tightly. "Be invisible," he whispered. "Come home safe." Tamara nodded and pulled her headscarf low. She took one last look at her cottage, her safe haven, her hiding place. Then she turned and walked toward Thorn Hall, toward her destiny, toward the Alpha King who would see through every disguise she had ever worn. The walk from the courtyard to Thorn Hall was the longest of Tamara's life. Lucien's hand remained on her wrist, gentle but unyielding. He did not drag her or pull her. He simply walked, and she found herself following as if drawn by invisible strings. The great hall was quieter than the courtyard, but no less intimidating. Carved wooden pillars rose to a vaulted ceiling painted with constellations. Tapestries depicting ancient battles hung on stone walls. Servants moved silently in the shadows, their eyes watching everything. Lucien led Tamara to a side chamber and released her wrist. He closed the door behind them, and suddenly they were alone. Tamara immediately backed away, putting as much distance between them as the small room allowed. Her back hit the wall. She pressed against it as if she could melt through the stone and escape. Lucien did not move closer. He stood near the door, watching her with those unreadable gray eyes. The amber glow had faded, but the intensity remained. "You are afraid," he observed. His voice was quieter now, without an audience to command. Tamara said nothing. Her hands gripped the rough fabric of her dress. "Why?" Lucien asked. The question startled her. Because you chose me. That is not a reason to fear. It is when I did not want to be chosen. The words slipped out before she could stop them. Tamara immediately regretted her honesty, but it was too late to take it back. Lucien's expression shifted slightly. Not anger. Something more complex. You came to the trials. Every Omega who attends knows what that means. I came because I had no choice, Tamara said quietly. Refusal means exile, so you disguised yourself. It was not a question. Lucien's eyes moved over her ash-stained face, her hidden hair, her shapeless dress. You tried to make yourself undesirable. Tamara's heart raced. She said nothing, but her silence was answer enough. Lucien took a single step forward. Tamara pressed harder against the wall. He stopped immediately. I will not hurt you. You are an Alpha King. You could do whatever you wish. I could, Lucien agreed. But I will not. Whatever you believe about me, know this. I do not force. I do not take what is not freely given. His words were steady, sincere. But Tamara had heard stories. She knew what alphas were capable of when their instincts took over. When they found their fated mate. Then release me, she whispered. Choose someone else. Elara Voss would be honored. Saren Vale would be perfect. Any of them would. I do not choose them, Lucien interrupted. His voice was firm. I choose you. But why? Frustration bled into Tamara's voice. You do not know me. You saw me for seconds. I am hidden beneath ash and herbs. You cannot possibly. Your scent. The two words stopped her cold. Lucien's eyes held hers. Even masked by whatever herbs you used, I know your scent. It is unmistakable, ancient, rare. The scent of moonlight and silver. Tamara's blood turned to ice. I do not know what you mean. Yes, you do. Lucien's voice was gentle but relentless. You are Greyblood. Your lineage is written in your very soul. And you are my fated mate. The room spun. Tamara gripped the wall to keep from falling. No, that is impossible. The bond does not lie. There is no bond. You are mistaken. Am I? Lucien asked quietly. Then why does your pulse race when I am near? Why does your scent sharpen with fear and something else? Something you are trying very hard to deny? Tamara had no answer. Because he was right. She could feel it too, that strange pull, the way her body reacted to his presence, even as her mind screamed at her to run, the way his voice seemed to reach inside her chest and wrap around her heart. No. She refused to accept it. I need to leave, she said desperately. I need to go home. You cannot. Lucien's tone was not cruel, but it was absolute. You are my chosen Luna. The trials are complete. The bond has been declared before witnesses. I did not agree to this. Your agreement is not required for fate. The words hit her like a physical blow. Because he was right. In their world, among their people, the mate bond was sacred, unbreakable. Once an Alpha claimed his fated Omega before witnesses, the bond was sealed. Tamara felt tears burning behind her eyes. She would not cry. Not in front of him. Lucien seemed to sense her distress. His expression softened slightly. I know you are frightened. I know this is not what you wanted, but I swear to you, I will not harm you. You will be safe here. Safe, Tamara repeated bitterly. How can I be safe when I am trapped? You are not trapped. You are chosen. Is there a difference? Lucien was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I hope, in time, you will see that there is. Before Tamara could respond, a knock sounded at the door. A servant's voice called from the other side. Your Majesty, the council requests your presence. Lucien sighed. I must attend to matters of state. You will be escorted to your chambers. Food will be brought. Rest. We will speak again tomorrow. He opened the door and gestured for a servant to enter. The woman was older, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. This is Helena, Lucien said. She will see to your needs. Tamara wanted to protest, to demand to be released, to argue further. But exhaustion suddenly crashed over her. The day's events had drained her completely. Lucien met her eyes one last time. Sleep well, Tamara Gray. Your life has changed, but perhaps not in the way you fear. Then he was gone, leaving Tamara alone with Helena and 100 questions burning in her mind. Helena guided her through winding corridors to a chamber far more luxurious than anything Tamara had ever seen. A large bed with silk sheets, a wardrobe filled with gowns, a window overlooking moonlit gardens. I will draw you a bath, Helena said gently. You must be tired. Tamara said nothing. She walked to the window and stared out at the night sky. Somewhere beyond these walls was her cottage, her father, her simple, safe life. All of it felt impossibly far away now. As Helena prepared the bath, Tamara caught her reflection in a mirror. Ash still covered her face. Her headscarf remained firmly in place. But underneath, she knew the truth. The disguise had not worked. The Alpha King had chosen her anyway, and somewhere deep in her chest, where she refused to acknowledge it, something responded to that choice. Something that whispered this was right. This was meant to be. This was destiny. Tamara closed her eyes against the thought. She would not accept it. She would not surrender to fate. She would find a way to escape. She had to. Morning came too quickly. Sunlight streamed through the windows of Tamara's chamber, warm and persistent. She had barely slept, her mind racing with plans of escape that all seemed hopeless. Helena arrived with breakfast and a message. His Majesty requests your presence at the morning assembly. All Luna candidates must attend. Tamara's stomach twisted. I am the chosen Luna. Why would the other candidates need to attend? Helena's expression was careful. Tradition requires a formal presentation period. The candidates remain at court for 7 days while the Luna learns her duties. In other words, Tamara would spend a week surrounded by the very women she had tried so desperately to avoid, the ones who would hate her for being chosen, the ones who would see through her disguise eventually. She had no choice but to attend. Tamara reapplied her ash carefully, making sure every inch of her face was covered. She wrapped her headscarf tightly, tucking away every silver strand. She dressed in the same ugly gown from yesterday, refusing the fine clothes Helena offered. You could wear something more comfortable, Helena suggested gently. This is fine, Tamara said. When she entered the assembly hall, every head turned. The room fell silent as she walked to the front, where an empty seat waited beside Lucien's throne. The other candidates stood in a semicircle. Their expressions ranged from confusion to barely concealed fury. Alara Voss stared at Tamara with open hatred. Her golden hair was perfectly arranged, her gown a masterpiece of blue silk and silver embroidery. She looked like a Luna should look, beautiful, confident, regal. Tamara looked like a mistake. Saren Vale's expression was more calculated. Her dark eyes studied Tamara as if trying to solve a puzzle. What did the king see in her? Kaya Rowan seemed merely baffled, her head tilted in genuine confusion. But 2 other women caught Tamara's attention. Women she recognized from her village but had never spoken to. Saphira Dune stood with her arms crossed, her red hair blazing like fire in the morning light. She came from a wealthy pack, and her pride was legendary. Being passed over for the ash-covered girl must have cut deep. Rowena Kale looked no less furious. She was tall and sharp-featured, with eyes like chips of ice. Rumors said her family had spent a fortune preparing her for the trials. All that money and effort, wasted because the king chose a girl who looked like a peasant. Lucien entered the hall, and everyone bowed. He took his seat on the throne and gestured for Tamara to sit beside him. She hesitated. Every instinct told her to run, but dozens of eyes watched her, waiting to see what she would do. Slowly, Tamara moved to the chair beside Lucien and sat. She kept her hands folded in her lap, her head down, her entire body rigid with tension. Lucien glanced at her, but his expression revealed nothing. The assembly began with formal announcements. Council members droned on about trade agreements and border disputes. Tamara barely heard them. She was too focused on the weight of hostile stares burning into her back. When the formal business concluded, Lucien stood. The Luna candidates will remain at court as tradition requires. During this time, Tamara Gray will receive instruction in her duties as Luna. Your Majesty, a voice called out. It was Alara Voss, stepping forward with practiced grace. May I speak? Lucien nodded. Alara's smile was poison wrapped in honey. Forgive me, but many of us are confused. The chosen Luna appears to be in disguise. Is this proper? Should we not see her true face? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Tamara's heart hammered. This was it. They would expose her, force her to remove the ash and headscarf, reveal what lay beneath. But Lucien's voice cut through the whispers like a blade. My chosen Luna will present herself as she wishes. Her appearance is no one's concern but mine. Alara's smile faltered. Of course, Your Majesty. I meant no disrespect. Then you will show none, Lucien said coldly. Alara bowed and retreated, but her eyes promised violence. The assembly ended, and Tamara tried to slip away quickly, but she was not fast enough. Saphira Dune blocked her path. Up close, the woman was even more intimidating. Tall, muscular, radiating confidence, and barely controlled anger. You should not be here, Saphira said bluntly. Everyone knows it. Whatever trick you used to fool the king will not last. I used no trick, Tamara said quietly. Then what do you call that? Saphira gestured at Tamara's disguise. You hide your face. You stink of bitter herbs. You dress like a beggar. And somehow, the king chooses you over women of quality? Rowena Kale appeared beside Saphira, her expression equally cold. We will discover the truth, Whatever you are hiding, we will find it. Tamara said nothing. What could she say? They were right. She was hiding. But she could not afford to be exposed. A hand touched her elbow gently. Tamara jumped and turned to find Lucien standing behind her. Is there a problem? He asked. His voice was mild, but something dangerous lurked beneath it. Saphira and Rowena immediately stepped back. No one challenged the Alpha King directly. No problem, Your Majesty, Saphira said through gritted teeth. Good. Lucien's hand remained on Tamara's elbow. Come. We have matters to discuss. He guided her away from the others, through corridors and upstairs, until they reached a private garden. Stone paths wound between flowering bushes and ancient trees. A fountain bubbled in the center, the sound peaceful and calming. Lucien released her elbow but did not step away. They stood close enough that Tamara could feel the warmth radiating from his body. They will make your life difficult, he said. The other candidates. They see you as an obstacle to their ambitions. I know, Tamara whispered. I can assign guards. Protection. That will only make them hate me more. Lucien was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Why do you hide, Tamara? The question caught her off guard. You know why. I know you fear being chosen, but I do not know why that fear runs so deep. Tamara looked away, focusing on the fountain. Water sparkled in the sunlight, beautiful and free. She wished she could be like that water, flowing wherever it wanted, bound by nothing. My father told me stories, she said finally, about what happens to beautiful Omegas, how they become prizes, how Alphas fight over them, how they lose all freedom, all choice. Is that what you think I will do? Lucien asked. Take your freedom? You already have. I am here, am I not? Against my will. You are here because of fate. Because of a bond neither of us chose but both of us must honor. Must we? Tamara looked at him then, searching his face for answers. What if I refuse? What if I walk away? Lucien's expression was unreadable. You would be within your rights. I cannot force you to stay. Hope flared in Tamara's chest. Then I can leave? You can try, Lucien said. But the bond will follow you. You will feel the pull, the need to return. It will grow stronger each day, and eventually it will become unbearable. The hope died as quickly as it had sparked. So I am trapped either way. Or, Lucien said gently, you could stop seeing this as a trap and start seeing it as an opportunity. An opportunity for what? To be seen, to be known. To be chosen not for your beauty or your lineage, but for who you are. Tamara's throat tightened. Those words touched something deep inside her. Something she had buried beneath years of hiding and fear, but she could not let herself hope. Hope was dangerous. Before she could respond, a sharp sound cut through the garden. Tamara's foot slipped on loose gravel. She stumbled, arms windmilling as she tried to catch her balance. Lucien moved with startling speed. His arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her against his chest. Her scent-suppressant herbs, already weakening from the stress of the day, failed completely in that moment. Her true scent hit him full force. Lucien's entire body went rigid. His eyes flared amber gold. A low sound rumbled deep in his chest, something between a growl and a groan. His arm tightened around her waist, holding her against him as if she might disappear. Tamara froze. She could feel his heartbeat against her back, racing as fast as her own, could feel the tension in his muscles as he fought for control. Your scent, Lucien breathed against her ear. His voice was rough, strained. Moonlight and silver. It is even more powerful than I imagined. Tamara tried to pull away, but his arm did not budge. Please, she whispered. Let me go. For a long moment, Lucien did not move. Then, with visible effort, he released her and stepped back. His breathing was unsteady. His hands clenched into fists at his sides. Forgive me, he said. I did not mean to. It is fine, Tamara interrupted. Even though it was not fine. Nothing about this was fine. Her herbs were failing, her disguise was crumbling, and the mate bond was pulling at her with a strength she could no longer deny. Lucien's eyes slowly returned to their normal gray. But the intensity remained. You should rest. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. He turned and walked away, leaving Tamara alone in the garden with her racing heart and the terrible realization that her disguise would not protect her much longer. The Alpha King had caught her scent, and there was no hiding from that. The moon blessing ceremony took place on the 5th night of the formal presentation period. Every Luna candidate was required to attend, dressed in white to honor the ancient rituals. Helena had tried to convince Tamara to wear one of the beautiful gowns in her wardrobe, but Tamara refused. She wore the simplest white dress she could find, shapeless and plain. She wrapped her headscarf even tighter than usual. She applied extra layers of ash to her face. If she could just survive 2 more days, the presentation period would end. Then perhaps she could find a way to escape. The ceremony took place in the Hall of Wolves, a vast chamber carved from white stone. Moonlight poured through crystal skylights, illuminating the space with silvery radiance. Hundreds of nobles filled the hall, their voices creating a constant hum of conversation. At the far end, 7 pedestals stood in a semicircle, one for each Luna candidate. Tamara took her place on the last pedestal, furthest from Lucien's throne. She kept her head bowed, trying to be invisible despite standing elevated above the crowd. Elara Voss stood on the first pedestal, radiant in a gown that seemed to capture moonlight itself. Her golden hair cascaded down her back, adorned with white roses. Saren Vale wore silver jewelry that glinted with every movement. Kaya Rowan's dress sparkled with tiny crystals. Each candidate looked like a vision of perfection. And then there was Tamara, hidden and plain, and desperately hoping the ceremony would end quickly. The ritual began with traditional songs. Then blessings were spoken over each candidate. When the priests reached Tamara, their voices faltered slightly. Confusion flickered across their faces, but they completed the blessing and moved on. Lucien sat on his throne throughout, watching silently. His expression was unreadable as always, but his eyes kept returning to Tamara's bowed head. The ceremony was nearly complete when it happened. Rowena Kale stood from her seat among the nobles. She moved with purpose toward the pedestals. Guards stepped forward to stop her, but she raised her hand. "Your Majesty," she called out, her voice carrying across the hall. "I request permission to speak." Lucien's eyes narrowed. "This is not the time for formal addresses. What I have to say concerns your chosen Luna," Rowena insisted. "It is a matter of truth and honor." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Everyone leaned forward, curious. Lucien's jaw tightened, but he nodded once. "Speak," Rowena smiled. It was not a kind expression. She walked directly to Tamara's pedestal and climbed the steps until they stood face to face. "You hide your face, chosen Luna," Rowena said loudly. "Why? What are you concealing from your king? From this court?" Tamara's heart stopped. "I conceal nothing." "No?" Rowena's hand shot out faster than Tamara could react. Her fingers caught the edge of Tamara's headscarf and yanked. The fabric tore away. Silver-streaked hair tumbled down Tamara's back, catching the moonlight and seeming to glow. The crowd gasped collectively, but Rowena was not finished. She grabbed the collar of Tamara's plain dress and pulled. Cheap fabric ripped easily. The shapeless garment fell away, revealing the fitted white gown Helena had secretly placed underneath, hoping Tamara would wear it. And then Rowena's hand scraped across Tamara's face, smearing away the ash. The disguise shattered completely. Tamara stood frozen on the pedestal, fully revealed for the first time since arriving at Thornhall. Her silver-streaked hair cascaded around her shoulders. Her skin glowed like pearl in the moonlight. Her spring-green eyes were wide with terror. Every line of her face, every curve of her body, every inch of the beauty she had worked so hard to hide was now exposed. The silence in the hall was absolute. Then someone whispered, "She is beautiful." "Greyblood," another voice breathed. "She is stunning." The whispers grew louder, cascading into an avalanche of shock and realization. Tamara wanted to run, to hide, to disappear, but her legs would not move. She stood paralyzed as hundreds of eyes stared at her true face for the first time. And then a sound cut through the chaos. A growl, low, dangerous, promising violence. Lucien rose from his throne. His eyes blazed amber gold. His body was changing, shifting, the wolf rising to the surface with furious speed. His canines elongated, claws extended from his fingers. The air around him crackled with barely controlled power. In 3 strides, he crossed the hall and leaped onto Tamara's pedestal. He positioned himself directly in front of her, his body a shield between her and the crowd. His shoulders were broad enough to block her completely from view. The growl grew louder, deeper, a warning to everyone present. "Touch her again," Lucien snarled, his voice distorted by the partial shift. "And I will tear you apart." Rowena stumbled backward, her confidence evaporating. "Your Majesty, I only meant to—" "You meant to humiliate her." Lucien's claws flexed. "You meant to expose her against her will, to violate her privacy before this entire court. But she was hiding. She was protecting herself." Lucien's voice boomed through the hall. "From people exactly like you. People who would use her beauty as a weapon against her." He turned slightly, not fully showing Tamara to the crowd, but enough that he could look down at her. His eyes, still glowing amber, softened when they met hers. "Come," he said gently. "We are leaving." He held out his hand. Tamara stared at it, this offer of protection from the Alpha she had tried so hard to escape. Her hand trembled as she reached out and placed it in his. Lucien's fingers closed around hers, warm and steady. He helped her down from the pedestal and wrapped his cloak around her shoulders, hiding her revealed beauty once more. Then he turned to face the crowd. "The ceremony is over," he declared. "Everyone leave. Now." No one argued. Nobles and servants alike scrambled to exit the hall. Within minutes, the vast chamber was empty except for Lucien and Tamara. Lucien's partial shift receded slowly. His claws retracted, his canines shortened. His eyes faded back to gray. But the protective fury still radiated from him. He looked down at Tamara, still wrapped in his cloak. Her silver-streaked hair caught the moonlight streaming through the skylights. Without the ash, her skin glowed. Without the shapeless dress, her beauty was undeniable. "So this is the face fate tried to hide from me," Lucien said quietly. "Now I understand why you were so afraid." Tamara's voice was barely a whisper. "I am sorry." "For what?" "For deceiving you. For hiding. For—" "Stop!" Lucien's hand gently touched her chin, tilting her face up to meet his eyes. "You have nothing to apologize for. You protected yourself the only way you knew how. There is no shame in that." Tears burned behind Tamara's eyes. Everyone saw. The entire court knows now. Let them know. Lucien's thumb brushed across her cheek, wiping away a tear she had not realized had fallen. "Your beauty changes nothing. I chose you before I saw your face. I chose you for your scent, for the bond between us, for the way destiny carved you specifically for me." "You do not understand," Tamara said desperately. "This is what I feared. Being seen. Being wanted for my appearance. Being nothing but a beautiful prize." "You are not a prize," Lucien said firmly. "You are my mate. My chosen Luna. And yes, you are beautiful beyond measure. But that is not why I want you." "Then why?" Lucien was quiet for a long moment, studying her face in the moonlight. Then he said, "Because when I inhale your scent, every instinct in me recognizes home. Because the bond between us is written in ancient magic, I cannot deny or resist. Because fate chose you for me before either of us drew our first breath." His hand moved from her chin to cup her cheek. "And because I have been waiting my entire life for someone to look at me not with fear or reverence or ambition, but with honesty. And you, Tamara Gray, have been nothing but honest since the moment we met." Tamara's breath caught. His words wrapped around her heart and squeezed. "I am still afraid," she whispered. "I know." Lucien's thumb traced gentle circles on her cheek. "But perhaps in time you will fear me less." They stood like that for a long moment, bathed in moonlight, the Alpha King and the Omega who tried to hide. And for the first time, Tamara allowed herself to truly look at him, not as a threat, but as the man fate had chosen for her. His eyes were gray but kind. His touch was gentle despite his strength. His voice was calm despite the fury he had shown in her defense. Maybe, just maybe, he was not the monster she had feared. Lucien's hand slowly dropped from her face. "You should rest. Tomorrow will bring new challenges." "What will happen to Rowena?" Tamara asked. "She will be banished from court. Her family will be fined for the insult." Lucien's voice was cold when he spoke of the woman who had torn away Tamara's disguise. "No one touches my Luna without consequence." My Luna. The word sent a shiver through Tamara's chest. Not fear this time. Something else. Something she was not ready to name. Lucien escorted her back to her chambers. Helena was waiting, her expression horrified when she saw what had happened. "Oh, child," Helena breathed. "Are you hurt?" "No," Tamara said. "Just tired." Lucien paused at the door. "Sleep well, Tamara. Tomorrow, we begin again." After he left, Helena helped Tamara out of the torn gown and into soft night clothes. She brushed the silver-streaked hair and braided it gently. "Everyone will be talking about you now," Helena said. "About your beauty, your lineage." "I know," Tamara whispered. "But they will also be talking about how the king defended you. How he chose you. How he treasures you." Helena smiled. "That is worth more than beauty, child. That is worth everything." Tamara climbed into bed but could not sleep. Her mind replayed the events of the night over and over. The moment her disguise was torn away, the crowd's gasps, Lucien's protective fury. His words echoed in her mind. "You are not a prize. You are my mate." For the first time, Tamara allowed herself to consider a possibility she had refused to acknowledge. Maybe being chosen was not the same as being claimed. Maybe fate had not sentenced her to a life of captivity. Maybe fate had given her something else entirely. As she drifted toward sleep, wrapped in silk sheets in a palace chamber, Tamara realized something had shifted inside her. The fear was still there, but so was something new, curiosity, wonder. and the faintest spark of hope. Morning arrived with gentle sunlight and the sound of birds singing in the gardens. Tamara woke slowly, her mind still foggy from restless dreams. For a moment, she forgot where she was, then memory crashed back. The ceremony, the reveal, her disguise torn away before hundreds of witnesses. She sat up quickly and found Helena placing fresh clothes in the wardrobe. "Good morning," Helena said with a warm smile. "His Majesty requests your presence for breakfast. Private. In his chambers." Tamara's heart jumped. "His chambers? Do not worry. It is merely breakfast. The king thought you might prefer privacy after last night's events." Tamara dressed carefully. Without her disguise, she had no reason to wear ash or herbs. Helena had already removed all traces of the bitter scent from her skin. Her silver-streaked hair fell naturally down her back. Her face was bare, revealing features she had hidden for so long. She looked like herself for the first time since arriving at Thorn Hall, and it terrified her. Helena led her through quiet corridors to the king's private quarters. The rooms were surprisingly simple. No excessive decoration or displays of wealth. Just solid furniture, comfortable spaces, and windows overlooking mountains in the distance. Lucien stood near one of those windows, his back to the door. He wore simple clothing again, dark trousers and a white shirt. His hair was slightly damp, as if he had recently bathed. He turned when she entered, and for a moment, they simply looked at each other. This was the first time he had seen her true face in full daylight. No ash, no shadows, no disguise of any kind. Lucien's expression was unreadable, but his eyes moved over her features with careful attention, taking in the spring-green eyes, the delicate curve of her jaw, the silver streaks that marked her as gray blood. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. Tamara nodded, not trusting her voice. "Please, sit." Lucien gestured to a table set with breakfast. Fresh bread, fruit, cheese, and tea. They sat across from each other. For several minutes, neither spoke. The only sounds were silverware on plates and the distant song of birds. Finally, Lucien broke the silence. "How are you feeling?" "Exposed," Tamara answered honestly. "Everyone knows now. What I look like, what I am. And you fear how they will treat you because of it." "Yes." Lucien set down his fork. "I have been thinking about what you said, about not wanting to be chosen, about fearing what alphas do to beautiful omegas." Tamara's fingers tightened on her teacup. "You are not wrong to fear," Lucien continued. "I have seen what you describe. Alphas who treat omegas as possessions, who value beauty over all else, who take without asking and call it destiny. Then you understand why I hid." "I do." Lucien's gray eyes held hers. "But I need you to understand something as well. I am not those alphas. I do not seek to own you or control you. I seek a partner, a mate, someone to stand beside me, not behind me." "You say that now," Tamara said quietly. "But the mate bond will grow stronger. Your instincts will demand obedience. Submission. That is how it works." "It does not have to work that way." Lucien leaned forward slightly. "Yes, the bond exists. Yes, instincts are powerful. But we are not slaves to them. We have choice, free will, the ability to decide what kind of relationship we build." Hope flickered in Tamara's chest, but she tamped it down. "You make it sound simple." "It is not simple. It will require work, communication, trust." Lucien's voice was steady, sincere, "But I believe it is possible. If you are willing to try." Tamara looked down at her hands. "I do not know how to trust you. I barely know you. Then let me tell you about myself." Lucien settled back in his chair. "I was not born to be Alpha King. My older brother held that title, but he died in battle when I was 17. I never wanted this throne or this responsibility, but I accepted it because duty demanded it." Tamara looked up, surprised by his honesty. "I have ruled for 8 years, Lucien continued. 8 years of managing pacts, settling disputes, maintaining peace. And every year, the council pressured me to find a Luna, to choose a mate, to secure the bloodline." His expression darkened slightly. "They paraded dozens of omegas before me, beautiful, accomplished, perfect candidates. But none of them were you." "What do you mean?" I was waiting for the bond, for the recognition, for the moment when every instinct in me would say this one." Lucien's eyes met hers, and then you walked into that courtyard, hidden beneath ash and herbs, trying desperately to be invisible. And I knew. Tamara's breath caught. "Your scent reached me from across the courtyard," Lucien said softly. "Even masked, even dulled by bitter herbs, I knew. And when I stood before you and inhaled, it was like finding something I did not know I had lost." Silence stretched between them. Tamara felt her heart hammering against her ribs. His words were affecting her more than she wanted to admit. "I have something to confess," Lucien said. His voice changed, became more hesitant. "We have met before." Tamara blinked. "What? You were very young. 6, perhaps 7 years old. You probably do not remember." "I do not understand." Lucien stood and walked to a window. 15 years ago, there was an attack on your village. Northern raiders. My father sent me with soldiers to help. We arrived too late to stop the raid, but we chased the survivors into the forest." Memory stirred in Tamara's mind. A vague recollection of smoke and screaming. Her father hiding her in a root cellar. "One raider had broken into a cottage," Lucien continued. "I found him threatening a man and a young girl. I killed the raider. The man was your father, Eldon Gray." Tamara gasped softly. "I remember. Barely. A soldier came. He had kind eyes." "You were terrified," Lucien said, shaking. "Your father tried to keep you hidden, but you had scraped your knee running to the cellar. You were crying. You gave me a cloth to stop the bleeding," Tamara whispered, the memory crystallizing. "And you told me I was brave." Lucien turned to face her. "And even then, even as a child, your scent was distinctive, silver and moonlight. I did not understand what it meant at the time, but I never forgot it." Tears burned in Tamara's eyes. "You remember me from when I was a child?" "I remember everything about that day." Lucien's expression was soft, vulnerable in a way she had never seen. "I searched for you afterward. I wanted to make sure you and your father were safe, but you had moved, disappeared. I spent years wondering what happened to the girl with silver in her hair. So when I walked into the courtyard, I recognized you immediately." Lucien's voice was barely above a whisper. "Not your face, which you had hidden, but your scent, your soul. The girl I saved became the woman fate chose for me." Tamara could not stop the tears now. They slid down her cheeks silently. All these years, she had hidden from Alphas, from destiny, from the danger her father warned about. But the Alpha King had already found her, 15 years ago. And instead of claiming her, he had protected her. "Why did you not tell me this before?" she asked. "I did not want to overwhelm you. You were already frightened enough." Lucien crossed the room and knelt beside her chair. His eyes were level with hers. "But I need you to know, my choice was not random. It was not based on beauty or politics or convenience. It was based on recognition that goes deeper than sight or sound. It was based on a connection forged years ago, when I was a boy who saved a frightened child." Tamara's hand moved almost of its own accord. Her fingers touched his cheek gently, feeling the roughness of stubble, the warmth of his skin. "I heard you," Lucien whispered. "The night before the ceremony. You were talking to someone. You said you pretended to be ugly so you would not be chosen." Tamara's hand froze. "You heard that?" "Every word." Pain flickered across his face, and it broke something inside me. To know that you were so desperate to avoid me, to avoid this bond. "I was afraid," Tamara said softly. "I know, and I understand why." Lucien's hand covered hers, where it still rested on his cheek. "But I need you to understand something. You were not claimed, Tamara. You were chosen. There is a difference." "What difference?" "Claiming is about taking. Choosing is about recognition." His thumb stroked the back of her hand gently. "I do not want to take from you. I want to build with you. A partnership. A life. Something neither of us expected but both of us deserve." Tamara felt something crack inside her. All the walls she had built, all the defenses she had erected, began to crumble. Because this Alpha King was not what she expected. He was not demanding or controlling or cruel. He was gentle, patient, understanding. "I am still afraid," she whispered. "Then be afraid." Lucien's eyes held hers. "But be afraid with me. Let me prove that your fear is unfounded. Give me a chance to show you what we could be together." Tamara's breath shuddered. "I do not know if I can." "Yes, you can." Lucien's free hand moved to cup her other cheek. Both of his hands framed her face now, gentle and warm. "You are the bravest person I have ever met. You disguised yourself and walked into a courtyard full of Alphas. You stood before me despite your terror. You have survived every moment since with dignity and strength." His face was close now. So close she could feel his breath on her lips. Her heart thundered in her chest. "Be brave one more time," Lucien whispered. "Trust me. Just a little. Just enough to see what happens." Tamara's eyes closed. Her whole body trembled. This moment felt bigger than any choice she had ever made. But Lucien did not push. He simply held her face in his hands and waited, giving her the choice, the power, the control, and something inside Tamara shifted. Maybe fate was not her enemy. Maybe the mate bond was not a prison. Maybe this Alpha King, who had saved her as a child and chosen her as an adult, could be trusted. Maybe. Her eyes opened. She met his gaze directly for the first time since arriving at Thorn Hall. "Okay," she whispered. "I will try." The smile that spread across Lucien's face was like sunrise, warm and bright and full of hope. He leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. But Tamara did not pull away. His lips brushed against her forehead. A soft kiss, gentle and chaste. A promise rather than a demand. "Thank you," he breathed against her skin. "You will not regret this." Tamara was not sure if he was right, but for the first time since this journey began, she wanted to find out. The council chamber was packed with nobles, pack leaders, and advisors. Every seat was filled, every wall lined with witnesses. Word had spread through Thorn Hall like wildfire. Today, the council would vote on whether Tamara Gray was fit to become Luna. The rivals who had competed in the trials had filed formal complaints. They claimed deception, fraud, unworthiness. They demanded Lucien choose again from among the approved candidates. Tamara stood in the center of the chamber, dressed in a simple white gown. Her silver-streaked hair was unbound, flowing down her back. Her face was bare, her true beauty on full display. She held her head high despite her trembling hands. Around her, hostile eyes stared with judgment and resentment. Lucien sat on his throne at the far end of the chamber, his expression carved from stone. But his eyes never left Tamara. Darien Voss, Ilara's father, rose to speak first. "Your Majesty, the Luna trials have been corrupted. This Omega deceived everyone present." She hid her true appearance, masked her scent, and presented herself falsely. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. "She violated the spirit of the trials," Taryn Holt added. "He was a senior council member, gray-haired and severe. How can we trust someone who began their candidacy with lies?" Saphira Dune stood next. Though banished from court, her family held enough influence to speak at council. Moreover, she is clearly unprepared for the responsibilities of Luna. She has no training, no education in governance. She is a healer's daughter from a remote village. She lacks the qualifications this position demands. The attacks continued. One by one, nobles stood to question Tamara's worthiness. Her bloodline was scrutinized. Her father's humble profession was mocked. Her disguise was painted as proof of moral weakness. Through it all, Tamara stood silent. Her heart hammered, but she did not defend herself. What could she say? They were right about the deception. She had lied about her appearance. She had hidden what she was. Finally, the council fell silent. All eyes turned to Lucien. The Alpha King rose slowly from his throne. Power radiated from him, filling the chamber with weight and authority. When he spoke, his voice was calm but absolute. "You question my choice." It was not a question. It was a statement of fact. "We only seek clarity, Your Majesty," Darien Voss said carefully. "The Luna is meant to be a partner to the throne. We must ensure she is suitable." "Suitable," Lucien repeated. He stepped down from the dais and walked toward the center of the chamber, toward Tamara. "Tell me, Darien Voss, what makes someone suitable to be Luna? Breeding, training, beauty, intelligence. And Tamara Gray lacks these qualities?" Darien hesitated. "She hid her beauty. That suggests shame or deception. Or survival," Lucien countered. He reached Tamara and stood beside her. His presence was a solid warmth at her back. "You want to know why she disguised herself? I will tell you. Because she was protecting herself from people like you." Gasps echoed through the chamber. "She knew that her beauty would make her a target," Lucien continued. His voice grew harder, edged with controlled fury. "She knew that alphas would fight over her, that she would become a prize to be won rather than a person to be known. So she hid. She protected herself the only way she could." He turned to face the council directly. "And you dare to call that deception?" "I call it wisdom," Taryn Holt spoke up. "But Your Majesty, tradition demands." "Tradition demands I recognize my fated mate," Lucien interrupted. "And I have. The bond between us is undeniable. Ancient. Written in prophecy and blood. Prophecy can be misinterpreted," someone called out. "Can it?" Lucien's eyes blazed. "The prophecy states the next Luna must carry gray blood lineage, that she would bear the scent of moonlight and silver, that she would be recognized by scent rather than sight." His hand moved to rest on Tamara's shoulder. "Tamara Gray fulfills every requirement. She is gray blood. Her scent is unmistakable, and I recognized her as my mate the moment she entered the courtyard." "Even hidden beneath ash and herbs?" Darien challenged. "Especially then," Lucien said. "Because I did not choose her for her face. I chose her for her soul." The words rang through the chamber like a bell. Tamara felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Not here. Not now." Lucien addressed the entire council. You want to know if she is suitable to be Luna? Then watch. He turned to Tamara and took both her hands in his. His eyes met hers with absolute certainty. I, Lucien Thorne, Alpha King of Varen Territories, claim you, Tamara Gray, as my fated mate and Luna. His voice carried ancient power, the words of a formal bonding ceremony. Before these witnesses, before the moon and stars, before the spirits of our ancestors, I choose you, not for your beauty, though you are beautiful, not for your lineage, though it is noble, but for the bond that ties my soul to yours, for the recognition that goes deeper than sight or reason, for the destiny that has been written since before we drew breath. The air in the chamber began to shimmer. Magic stirred, responding to the formal words of bonding. Do you accept? Lucien asked Tamara quietly, for her ears alone. You still have a choice, even now. Tamara looked into his eyes. She saw no demand there, no threat, only hope and sincerity, and a question that deserved an honest answer. All her life, she had feared this moment, this choice, this surrender of freedom. But standing here, hands held by an Alpha King who had protected her as a child and chosen her as an adult, she realized something profound. This was not surrender. This was not captivity. This was partnership, recognition, a chance to be seen and known and valued for who she truly was. I accept, Tamara whispered. The words were barely audible, but they carried through the chamber like thunder. Light erupted from where their hands joined, silver and gold, twining together, spiraling upward. The magic of the mate bond made visible, undeniable, absolute. Tamara gasped as power flowed through her. Not Lucien's power, but her own. The ancient magic of her gray blood lineage, dormant until this moment, awakened by the bonding. Her hair lifted on an invisible wind, silver streaks glowing like moonlight. Her skin seemed to shimmer, her scent intensified, filling the chamber with the unmistakable fragrance of moonlight and silver. The council members fell to their knees, heads bowed. The power radiating from Tamara was undeniable proof of her lineage, of her worthiness, of her destiny. Even Darian Voss knelt, his face pale with shock. The light slowly faded. The power settled. But something fundamental had changed. Tamara stood taller now, her trembling gone. The bond thrummed between her and Lucien, a connection she could feel in her very bones. Lucien smiled at her, pride and joy mixing in his expression. Then he addressed the council without looking away from her face. Anyone still question my choice? Silence answered him. Good. Lucien's fingers tightened around Tamara's. Then prepare for the formal Luna ascension. It will take place at the next full moon. He led Tamara from the chamber, leaving behind a crowd of speechless nobles. They walked through corridors in comfortable silence until they reached a private balcony overlooking the mountains. How do you feel? Lucien asked. Tamara considered the question carefully. Different. Changed. Like something inside me woke up. The bond does that, completes what was incomplete. She turned to face him fully. I am still afraid sometimes, still uncertain. I know. Lucien's hand moved to cup her cheek, the gesture already becoming familiar. But we have time. A lifetime, if fate is kind. We will figure it out together. Tamara leaned into his touch. For the first time since this journey began, she felt something that had eluded her for years. Peace. The days that followed were busy with preparation. The Luna Ascension ceremony required planning, ritual, tradition. Helena helped Tamara learn the formal customs. Other Omegas from the castle staff taught her the duties she would assume. To Tamara's surprise, not all the rivals remained hostile. Kaya Rowan approached her one afternoon with a genuine smile. I apologize for my initial coldness, Kaya said. I see now why the king chose you. The bond is undeniable. Even Saren Vale offered grudging respect. You are stronger than you appeared. Perhaps you will make a good Luna after all. Elara Voss, however, left court entirely. Her pride could not accept the outcome. Saphira Dune followed, banished for her role in plotting against Tamara. Rowena Kale was stripped of her family's titles and exiled to the borderlands, justice for the violence she had inflicted. Tamara found that she did not take pleasure in their downfall. She simply felt relief that the threat had passed. 7 days before the full moon, Lucien took Tamara riding in the mountains. They traveled on horseback through forests and meadows, alone except for distant guards maintaining respectful distance. They stopped beside a mountain lake, its surface reflecting clouds and sky perfectly. Lucien helped Tamara dismount and led her to the water's edge. I want to show you something, he said. He knelt and pulled something from his saddlebag, a small wooden box, worn smooth with age. Inside was a pendant, silver-shaped like a crescent moon, hanging from a delicate chain. This belonged to my mother, Lucien explained. She was Luna before me. She wore this pendant every day until she passed. She told me to give it to my mate when the bond was complete. Tamara's breath caught. It is beautiful. May I? Lucienne asked, holding up the pendant. Tamara turned, lifting her hair. Lucien fastened the chain around her neck, his fingers gentle on her skin. The pendant settled against her collarbone, cool and solid. When she turned back, Lucienne was watching her with an expression she had never seen before. Soft, vulnerable, open. You are my home, he said quietly. I have ruled this kingdom for 8 years, but I never felt like I belonged anywhere. Until you. Tamara's hand moved to cover the pendant. You saved me twice. Once as a child, once as a woman. You protected me when I could not protect myself, and you trusted me when you had every reason not to. Lucienne's hand found hers. That takes more courage than any battle I have ever fought. They stood beside the mountain lake, hands joined, the bond between them humming with contentment. Tamara felt the last of her fear dissolve. Not because the future was certain, but because she was no longer facing it alone. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For choosing me. For seeing past the disguise. For giving me a chance to be known. Lucien pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. Tamara rested her head against his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. I will spend my life proving you made the right choice, he murmured against her hair. You already have, Tamara said. The full moon rose 7 days later, enormous and silver in a clear sky. The Luna Ascension ceremony took place in the Hall of Wolves, the same place where Tamara's disguise had been torn away. But tonight, she wore no disguise. She stood in a gown of silver silk that seemed to capture moonlight itself. Her hair was adorned with white flowers. The crescent moon pendant gleamed at her throat. Lucien stood beside her in formal black, his hand holding hers. The hall was packed with witnesses. Every noble, every pack leader, every important figure in the Varen territories had come to see the Luna Ascension. The high priest spoke the ancient words. Blessings were called down. Rituals were performed. And then Lucien turned to Tamara. In front of everyone, he knelt before her. Gasps rippled through the crowd. An Alpha King never knelt. Not to anyone, but Lucien knelt before his Luna, his head bowed, offering submission and respect and partnership. I am yours, he said clearly, as you are mine. 2 souls, 1 bond. 2 lives, 1 destiny. Tamara's hands trembled as she placed them on his shoulders. I accept your bond. Your partnership. Your heart. Power flared between them again, brighter than before. The Luna Ascension was complete. Lucien rose and kissed her. Not the chaste kiss on her forehead from before, but a real kiss. Deep and claiming and full of promise. The hall erupted in cheers. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Lucien whispered against her lips, Welcome home, Luna. Tamara smiled, her heart so full it ached. I am home, and she was. Not because of the palace or the title or the power, but because of the man beside her, the Alpha King who had seen past her disguise to the woman beneath, who had chosen her not for her beauty or her lineage, but for the bond that tied their souls together. She had pretended to be ugly to escape the Alpha King, but he had chosen her anyway, and in being chosen, she had found something she never expected. Freedom, partnership, love. The girl who hid her face had finally been seen, and the Alpha King who found her would spend his life making sure she never needed to hide again. Thank you for experiencing Tamara and Lucien's story. If their journey touched your heart, please subscribe to Ariel Romance Library. Your support helps bring more powerful love stories to life. Until next time, may you find your own destiny written in the stars.